going to be talking lines, or we're going to be talking knots. I'm going to show you the lines that I use in all my setups. Then I'm going to show you the 2 knots that you're going to need to know in order to tie any kind of tackle or hooks onto your line. I'm also going to show you one line joining knot to take the place of a swivel in case you want that near seamless transition between line and leader. And then I'm going to show you one more knot at the end. It's going to be a dropper rig knot. And what it is, it helps you to fish 2 lures at the same time if it's legal in your state. So check your rules and don't break the law. So, without any further ado, follow me and let's talk tackle. Into our lines and our knot tying here. I just want to show you a few examples of the line that I use. I really love using Berkley Trilene line. Now, fishing for me is a confidence thing, as it should be for you. If you're not confident about the line that you're choosing, the knots that you're tying, the equipment that you're using, then it kind of gets to where you get a little disappointed about fishing because maybe you're breaking off too much, or your line has a lot of memory in it. And by memory I mean the coils in the line. Let me show you here really quickly what I mean. This is memory in a fishing line. You can see, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but you can see that this is all coiled up here. Now when you get to the point of this being coiled up, when it stretches out, that memory will disappear. Now, it won't disappear completely because you can never get it because you're reeling it back on to your fishing reel, so it's going to have memory in it. So, I want to show you, I use the XT. It's great for fishing around any kind of cover, which I fish a lot of cover. Sticks, logs, bridge pylons, rocks, rivers and stuff like that. So if you get a little nick in your line, you're not going to lose that trophy fish. If you do get your trophy fish and you happen to break off because you're using something like an XL line, which is smooth casting, but it's not very good at abrasion resistance. It is very good line for ice fishing. I love pan fishing with ice, for ice fishing with the XL. It just stays a lot more limp in the cold water than an XT does. The memory goes away a little easier with the XL. Now you can buy it in different sizes. This is an 8-pound test. This is a 4-pound test. What I also use is I use PowerPro. You guys have seen me use these in my videos for my pan fishing. This is 8-pound strength, and it has a 1-pound diameter. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but this is like sewing thread. Now, PowerPro makes all sizes of line, and when I fish Lake Erie or I bass fish, I'll use PowerPro as well, but I'll use a 20-pound test, and it has a 6-pound diameter, which is awesome. Now, when I'm fishing, whether I'm fishing with PowerPro, whether I'm fishing with mono, this is a monofilament line. It is a clear, almost looks plastic. It's made of monofilament, which is like a plastic. And the PowerPro is a braided line, which is actually fibers that are braided together of string, basically. I usually team those up with a fluorocarbon. This Seaguar is my favorite fluorocarbon to use ever. Now, they make all different kinds of fluorocarbon, just like they make all different kinds of fishing line. But don't be confused. The Seaguar red label is called AbrazX. It's 100% fluorocarbon fishing line. There's a lot of fluorocarbons out there that will say virtually invisible, or it'll also say fluorocarbon coating on the line. Now, those lines are, to me, they're junk. They're garbage. I don't like them. I've been fishing my whole life, and I found what works, and I want to give you what works. I don't want to give you what costs the cheapest or what someone else thinks is the best. I'm showing you what I feel is the best stuff to use. So with the AbrazX here, I use 4-pound test here in the AbrazX for my pan fishing. Now, a lot of people don't really use fluorocarbon for pan fishing or even for bass fishing or walleye fishing. For me, it's a confidence thing. And like I said, if you're not confident in the stuff that you're using, you're probably not going to catch any fish. I mean, hey, everybody gets lucky, and I always say I'd rather be lucky than good any day, but this actually puts it in my head that I'm doing something right, and I keep a smile on my face. So my friends say, oh, I'm not catching no fish. I tell them, because you're not holding your mouth right. You need to smile, man. Smile more when you're fishing because it's fun. It's not supposed to be aggravating or upsetting. It's supposed to be nice and relaxing. It's something to get away from everything else. So the InvizX is a soft, easy to cast. Now, when I'm fishing, I will team them up just like this. Right here, I will use the XL smooth casting with the 6-pound, or with the, I'm sorry, not the poundage. I'll use the XL smooth casting with the InvizX, the yellow label. And I'll use the XT with the AbrazX, because when I'm fishing this combo, I'm fishing in tough water. When I say tough water, like I said, I'm bass fishing, or I'm fishing along the bottom, I'm fishing along rocks or pylons, whatever. Anything that, if that fish grabs it, it can nick your line. When I'm fishing with this, is mainly I will fish with it for panfish where I'm not fishing around any kind of cover. Now there's a lot of different situations, and I know a lot of people that use this stuff all the time because they just like how smooth it is. Me personally, I prefer the XT with the AbrazX fluorocarbon, and I like the XL with the InvizX fluorocarbon. So now that we've gone through that, now I want to show you something here. I want to show you the fluorocarbon to not buy. Right there. This stuff, I actually bought this from eBay, and it was actually pretty cheap. And I bought it because it was cheap, and I've had this for, oh, let's see, 5 years, 6 years. You see how much I got left? The thing that I don't like about this line is that it has 0 abrasion resistance, and when you stretch it, it actually just frays on you. Like you see that? I just pulled that off, and I just broke it. But when you actually put this under any kind of stress or tension, it will get these crinkles in it like this. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it will also fray super easy. You try to tie a knot with this stuff, and it will actually, I could take my nail here, and I can totally fray this line up just with my fingernails. But yeah, try to stay away from suffix. You may find it works for you. If you do, great, because it's not that expensive. But when it comes down to your line, and when it comes down to your terminal tackle, I usually don't skimp. Now, I showed you some different spools there. Now, these are spools that are designed for spooling up spinning reels. Now, I bought this. This is big game. This is actually almost like an XT. It's super strong. I bought this for my level wind reels. Now, the spool difference here in these two lines, if you try spooling up a spinning reel with this line, it is going to twist all the time. And then when you're fishing, you're going to get things called wind knots, which is when your line twists and you reel up a twist in your reel, and then you go to cast again, and then all your line gets all bird's nest together. So if you have level wind reels, if you like to fish with bait casters or things of that nature, any kind of trolling rods, this is the stuff to use. This is more designed for a spinning reel because when it's so big and it comes off, it doesn't twist as much. Okay, but this stuff here, I've had this for a long time too. I mean, I have spooled up some spinning reels with it, and I've been very disappointed, and I'll never do it again. Like I said, this is for my bait caster, which I hardly ever use. That's why I still have some left. Now let's get into our knot tying here. So I have here a bass hook. This is just a standard bass hook you could pick up anywhere. But it's a little bit bigger, and I want to show you for video's sake. Now, with your fishing line, I'm using a little bit heavier line here. I'm not sure how well you can see this line against this black background. I picked the black background so it would work better. So the first knot we're going to tie is an improved clinch knot. So you just go through the hook, now, through the eye of the hook, and then you're just going to cross it over as if you were going to tie an overhand knot. I like to hold my finger in here, and then I hold this and I wrap this tag end. This is the tag end. I wrap it around, depending on line size, it varies on how many times you go around it. For video's sake, I'm only going to go around 3 times, so this doesn't take forever. And then you're going to take the tag end of this line, and you're going to go back through that loop that you had your finger in, okay? And then you're going to take that tag end, and you're going to put it back through the little loop on the top. So that is what it should look like. And as you pull your knot tight, you're going to be pulling on this tag end as well to get everything cinched up there. And as you see, as you pull it down, you could see that knot cinch right up on there, just like that. Now, one thing about knots and a fishing line is, do you see how nice and smooth that fishing line is to the knot? Now, if it gets crinkled in there or anything, that means that you burned your line. That means that you need to cut off and start over, or you're going to risk a break off. Now, when I get done with this knot, I trim this as close as possible just to keep it out of the way, and that is an improved clinch knot. Now, depending on line size, like I said, is going to depend on the twists that you go around. Sometimes with heavier line, you're going to want to do more twists, and with lighter line, you're going to want to stick to about 4. I think I usually use about 4 to 5 twists on just about every line I use. I really don't use anything that's over 12-pound test, and that's in mono now. Okay, so the next knot that I want to show you is called the polymer knot. So you're going to go through the eyelet of your hook, and you're going to actually go back through the eyelet of your hook the way that you came out of, because you want it to look similar to a figure 8 or even a bow tie, if you will. That's what you're wanting your line to look like there. And then what you do, if you just take both of these, your tag end is over here, and what you do is you take both of these and you tie an overhand knot. And everybody knows what an overhand knot is. You tie your shoes with it. And then you use the loop end. Now the tag end is over here, and you use the loop and you go through that to tie your overhand knot. And then you put whatever it is that you're using, your hook, your swivel, your spinner, whatever it is, your fishing terminal tackle, through that loop, and then you just gently pull it together, and this is how it should cinch up. Oops. Now, the more that you can get it to cinch up in a smooth fashion, the better it will be. Because if you get it to a point where it doesn't want to cinch up correctly, then you'll burn that line right here, and you'll get that crinkling effect. Now, when I tie this polymer knot, which I think is probably the strongest fishing knot I've ever used, there may be some stronger knots out there, but I prefer this for just about everything. When I do tie this, I take both the tag end and my main line, and I give it a little tug after I cinch everything down, because I just want to make sure that that knot is completely tight on there. And that's the polymer knot. And then what I do there is I just trim this off once again as close as possible. And there you go. I think that this is personally the world's strongest fishing knot for the type of fishing that we do. Now, if you get into saltwater fishing or really big game fishing, you're going to be using different tackle altogether. But for most of the continental United States, for any freshwater species of fish that you're going to fish for, the polymer knot is pretty much the best knot you're going to tie. So, I want to show you, those are the 2 knots that I wanted to show you on how to attach any kind of terminal tackle to your line. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to skip over, and I'm going to show you the line joining knots that I use for connecting my fluorocarbon leader, which will be the blue. We'll say the blue will be our fluorocarbon leader, and the white will be my main line. Okay? I know a lot of people that don't use line joining knots because they have no confidence in them. They feel they break a lot, so they use swivels, which is okay. But I fly fish quite a bit, so I need to make knots in line that don't have swivels in them because that extra weight just does nothing for the drift. So what I'm going to show you here is called a double uni knot, okay? So the blue, remember, is going to represent our fluorocarbon leader, and this white is going to represent our main line. What you're going to do is you're going to take the two tag ends and you're going to cross them over in opposite directions, just like this, okay? And then you'll squeeze them together, and you take your main line, and then you're going to make a loop out of it over top of your leader. And then you're going to pass that tag end through the loop and around your leader line, your fluorocarbon leader. And you're going to do that 3 to 4 times. I'm going to do it just here for video's sake so this line slides together really nice. And then what you're going to do is you're going to slightly pull the tag end. You're kind of holding everything all together, but you're going to pull that tag end until it just about gets tight. Okay? You don't want to squeeze it tight yet. You don't want that knot to cinch up on there just yet. And then you flip everything around. I'm a righty, so it's easier for me to use my right hand. The dexterity in my left hand is not great. I'm sure some of you have noticed I've got this little guy here that's a little crooked on me, so I'm a righty. So what I'm going to do now, I have my leader here in my fingertips. That's the tag end of my leader and my main line. I just switch sides. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to manipulate the line by twisting it through your fingers. Now this is the important part. You want to make this next loop in front of the knot. You don't want to make it over top of the knot because it won't work. You have to make it in front of the knot. And the same thing, pass this through. When I tie this mono to mono, which is monofilament to my fluorocarbon, I usually do 4 to 5 turns. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to pull that leader line through just till it gets tight, okay? And then you're going to have something that looks like this. You'll have 2 tag ends of each line, and it should come off the opposite side. Okay, remember, this is our main line. We've got the tag end of our blue, of our leader, onto our main line, and the tag end of our leader line onto our main line onto our leader, or tippet. So what you do at this point is I usually get this wet, which I won't because it's just floss, so you don't need to get it wet, and I'm not fishing with it. But I usually get this wet from knot to knot. We'll just put it in my mouth and get a little slobber on it, because this is a knot that you can really burn, and this is where people make the mistake and break off, and they hate line joining knots and everything else. So, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to take your main line and your leader line and let the tag ends hang, and you're going to pull that nice and slow until they touch. And then as you pull it, both of those knots will tighten up for you right there. And that is your line joining knot called a double uni knot. And that, to me, is the best line joining knot that I have ever tied. I used to tie blood knots and all that stuff. And that is, and you trim these off. I trim these off as close as possible because there's sometimes where, like when I'm fly fishing, when I get done, I want to reel everything up right into my reel, and these will pass through the guides of your rod very simply. But that is the double uni knot that holds 2 lines together, whether it happens to be a tippet for fly lines that you're stepping down from whatever sizes all the way down to your very final tippet that you're going to tie your fly onto, or whether it is for braided line to a mono tippet or leader, whether it's mono to mono with a leader. This is the all-around best knot that I think that you could tie. You may find something else that's different, but you have to find what really works for you. I'm just here to show you a couple tips and tricks on what to do. Now I want to show you one last knot here. Now I'm sure in some of my videos you guys have seen me using a 2-rig pattern, or it's called a dropper pattern. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to show you with this blue line, because I think it'll show up a little bit better. So let's say here, for video's sake, that we have this tied. This is our main hook. This is our jig. This is whatever this is. Our attractor pattern, there we'll call it, is tied onto that hook. Okay. So now what I do for my dropper rigs is I'll take my leader. I'll take a little piece of leader. It's usually about this long too, so it's, whatever that is, 16, 18 inches, maybe 20. And I just take and I make one loop with it, okay, and I just cross it over and pinch it in my fingers. And I make sure that I have a sufficient amount of tag end left here on the other side. Now, I take the tag end and I wrap it under this loop and over top of it and pinch it in my fingers again, and then I do it one more time. And I make 2 loops there. Oh, I didn't leave my tag end long enough. Let me try that again. So, for video's sake here, we got to start this over. So, go under the loop that you crossed over, and then you go over it, pinch your line. Do the same thing. Go under again, and pinch it in your fingers so you can hold everything together. And then your tag end, this is your original loop, and here's the 2 loops that you tied. You're going to go through this main loop, okay? And then you're going to take that tag end and go right through both of those loops that you had already wrapped under. Now, keeping your finger, keeping everything in line, I pinch all these up here, and I reach through and grab that tag end, and I hold on to my main loop, okay? And you see this is going to turn into a dropper knot. And it is actually a slip knot. You see that? You can close it, and if you leave your tag end big enough, you can open it back up. So what I do here is I take my hook, and I just put it in there, and I pull this tight, and that's it. And now I can fish with an attractor pattern or a double jig pattern for crappie or anything. I mean, I use it a ton for steelhead. I use an attractor pattern like a sucker spawn or a glow bug or even a nymph or something like that up here, and then I'll put down here, I'll put a jig, or I'll put another kind of nymph or a woolly bugger or some other kind of lure down at the bottom. I'll even use this with a sucker spawn pattern up here for steelhead, and I'll put real eggs down here just to give it that attractor pattern. And then what I do when I cut this off, I usually cut this one off and I leave a little extra on there, because if I ever want to, say I'm fishing whatever, it doesn't matter, I'm fishing with some kind of attractor pattern on top, and I keep catching fish on whatever I'm using down here, okay? Sometimes you can double it up, and if you leave this long enough, you can back this knot off like that in order to take this off, cut this off, put on something else, and then you could still have your lure attached to this end, and you could just put it on the new hook, pull it tight, and now you don't have to retie this whole knot all over again. Because it saves time on the water, and it is a little less frustrating. But that's all that is. That is just a slip knot that I use for my dropper patterns. Well, I hope that you folks like this video. If you do, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys want to see more of, and I really hope that you guys get out and get some fishing done, because fishing is awesome. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.